Good afternoon to you. It is 5:06 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us today, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. As we've been following in some detail this week, a number of school districts in our area in Virginia, Fairfax, Prince William, Arlington, Loudoun, are all basically open revolts right now against the voters of Virginia who installed into office Glenn Youngkin, Winsome Sears, and my next guest, the Attorney General of the Commonwealth, Jason Miyares. Mr. Attorney General, good to have you with us, sir.
Great to be with you. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. It's this transgender model policy that the Youngkin administration put out. I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's an obligation they have by law to put out on how the issue of transgenderism is encountered in the schools. And what the Youngkin administration said is, look, parents have to be involved in literally everything, and kids have to use facilities that are associated with their actual sex. Do I have that right?
Well, I mean, listen, it clarifies that the governor's model policies are full compliance with the law, both under the Equal Protection Clause, Title IX, and the Virginia Human Rights Act. But really, our Attorney General opinion that is considered a quasi-judicial ruling, it simply confirms what an overwhelming number of Virginians already know, which is parents have a fundamental right to the care, upbringing, and education of their children. By the way, that is also considered one of the most oldest and fundamental rights by the United States Supreme Court. And parents, not government, are in the best position to work with their children on both their biggest life decisions. But also, I don't think any mom or dad signs up to be a co-parent with the government. And it's the idea that parents have to be involved. But it also protects Title IX sports and protects women's sports as well. That was another aspect of the governor's model policies that we reviewed, and it's fully in compliant with the prior federal rulings. And so, the governor's desire has always been to what he campaigned on, which is parents matter. You can't cut parents out of the process. And too many local school boards at this point have decided they've wanted to do so. That's why we issued the AG opinion, to just provide some, I think, clarity that was needed. And so our hope is the school boards that have changed their policies or decided to ignore the governor would do a motion to reconsider or revisit.
Right, but what if they decide that they want to continue to ignore this? Because my understanding, based on what you're just saying here, is that this is the law. If the governor puts forward this model policy, you have to follow it in Virginia, but that assumes that there are consequences for breaking the law, right?
Yeah, I mean, school boards are not allowed to adopt policies that are inconsistent with state laws. But the way the law is written, the way the code section is written, if parents have their rights violated, they can sue. And my office will evaluate every claim on a claim-by-claim basis, on a case-by-case basis, and our office stands ready to participate if it rises to the level we feel is appropriate for us to participate in. But that is the one risk that every school board has to understand is parents are not, you can't cut parents out. They have a right to bring a claim if their rights are violated.
So you are prepared to help parents in their lawsuits against these school boards if necessary?
Correct. We will evaluate every lawsuit on a case-by-case basis, and we stand ready to participate and we'll evaluate. But yes, we stand absolutely ready to participate and assist.
And what kind of damages would a school board face if they're guilty of violating the rights of these parents? Does that mean taxpayers are then on the hook for some sort of money?
Well, without too much speculation, I imagine most of what the parents would seek would be some type of injunctive relief to have the courts order the schools to implement the governor's policies. But again, that's going to be dependent upon what is filed, how it's filed, and what area of the law they file under. And but it goes back to exactly what I think most Virginians recognize as common sense. And it's a little bit shocking to me that something that if I had just said to you 5 years ago, Vince, hey, parents have a fundamental right to the education, upbringing of their children, that would not be considered a controversial statement. It has somehow become a controversial statement. It's not. And think about this. A school district, in order to give a child in a school district so much as an aspirin, they have to get permission from the parent. So much as an aspirin. But right now, some of these school boards are essentially saying, we may have to get your permission to give your child an aspirin, but we do not have to give your permission if we're going to change your child's gender pronoun. We do not have to consult with you. We don't have to notify you at all. And I think most parents hear that and they think that is cutting parents out. And from the beginning, the governor's attitude was parents matter. Parents need to be part of this discussion. And you certainly cannot cut them out because, as I noted, no mom or dad wants to co-parent with the government. These are decisions left up between the parent and their child.
The sports body that's responsible for sports for high schoolers across the Commonwealth of Virginia is called the Virginia High School League, VHSL. They have announced that they will not be following this transgender guidance from the Youngkin administration. They claim they're not even subject to it. What's the truth there?
Listen, I understand that was, I think, the executive director made that statement. They have not had a meeting of their board. And since then, we've released the Attorney General opinion that my hope that they will both read it to heart. But the whole reason we have Title IX is to protect women's sports. And even the Supreme Court has noted that there are biological differences between the sexes. The idea that we are now in this situation where we're trying to ignore those differences, I think, defies all logic. I'm old enough to remember the Olympic Games in the 1980s where you would have Eastern European athletes or Russian athletes that would be suspended, female athletes that were suspended and would get stripped of their medals, stripped of their ability to participate in competition because their testosterone levels were too high. And I remember that vividly. And it seems like the Virginia High School League seems to be forgetting one of those fundamental truths, which is there are biological differences between men and women, and that's the whole reason why we have Title IX sports to begin with. And the governor wants to protect women's sports, not try to erase it.
Are you surprised that you have local officials across the state, at least in the areas that you and I are talking about, who seem to be in open insurrection against the voters of the state?
I mean, I think it's unfortunate that they have found themselves in an ideological box that they cannot get themselves out of. The great irony is if you look in Europe, you have numerous sports leagues in Europe, even other leagues that are recognizing this difference, that are laying down markers saying that biological males are not going to be allowed to participate in women's sports. You've even had the NCAA with women's swimming that have now since reversed some of the positions they took previously. So the great irony is both at the collegiate level and in Europe, you're seeing a variety of different governing bodies of different sports leagues recognizing what is pretty much common sense. And so I am a bit surprised that they haven't recognized what other entities are doing. I'd have to think that maybe this is a little bit of politics from their standpoint, and they simply aren't willing to budge for that reason. Okay,
so I think the takeaway from our conversation today, Mr. Attorney General, and thank you as always for chatting with us about all of these important issues, is that the governor's guidance on these transgender policies are consistent with all of the Human Rights Acts and Equal Protections Clauses and Title IX that they need to be, and that you, the Attorney General, stand ready to assist parents in lawsuits against school boards who continue to stand in opposition to these parents.
We often say as the Attorney General's office, we stand as the people's protector, and that absolutely means protecting one of the most fundamental liberty interests that we've ever had in this country, was the right of a parent in the education upbringing of their child. So yes, we stand ready, willing, and able to assist in protecting the rights of parents.
All right. Mr. Attorney General Jason Miyares of the Commonwealth of Virginia, thank you for your time today. Good to talk to you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. He's got to run off to another event. We knew well in advance, by the way. We knew he had a heart out at this time. So grateful for his time today. Let me take Gary in Fredericksburg. He is on line one. Gary, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, good afternoon, Vince. Probably before your time, but I remember as a kid growing up during the 70s, mid-70s, that the women's Olympic team, swimming and polo, had a huge brouhaha over the Soviet women's teams taking steroids because they looked like guys in the water, and it was an unfair advantage. It even went to the UN. There were protests about it. The United States, absolutely, we don't want this.
Right.
Well, turning ourselves around, and it's an open invitation for any foreign country. Hey, stack your team as best you can, because you're going to go over there and just slaughter whatever team that you want to go to.
Yes.
It's not right. It's not fair. So
it's
if we're going full circle, and it's just
Yeah, you've noticed that the rules change moment by moment based on whatever sort of oddity the left wants to engage in. It was only like 3 years ago that we were against female genital mutilation, and everyone was in agreement about that. Now they endorse it. They actually push it on the children of this country. So it's pretty sick stuff, Gary. But you've noticed once again an important inconsistency here. Thank you, Gary.
Yeah.
Let me.
Thank you.
Let's see here. I'm going to take Lee in Leesburg, line 2. Lee, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Yeah, Vince, back in 2021 when, Ralph Northam was, this brouhaha started out here in Loudoun County.
Yes.
They used his model policies for the transgender, all that garbage.
Right.
And that is how the Loudoun County School Board justified implementing 80/40 out here, which included all this garbage in it. And now that the shoe is changed, the shoe's on the other foot. I hear a little bit of equivocation coming from Jason Miyares and the governor. They were voted in largely on this issue,
yes.
And they better put the hammer down on this. If they're not, I just they used this as a justification before in the Loudoun County School Board, saying we have to follow this, we have to align ourselves. Now that it's changed, they don't want to. They have to
drop the hammer
on these people and let them know who's boss around here.
Yes.
Or this is just flaunting what happened in that election and what's going to happen in the next election. This is just outrageous.
It's an insurrection.
It's an insurrection, and they better get their talking points right on this and get these people in line. That's what I have to say.
Yeah, thank you, Lee. And I want to point something out, though. As a part of the conversation that I just had with the Attorney General, this is the furthest I've heard in any outlet. It was right here on WMAL that we've heard any administration officials say what the actual consequences are. We started this week with a conversation with Loudoun County School Board member Tiffany Polifko, who said there is nobody talking about what the consequences are for this, for these school districts flipping the bird to the parents. What are the consequences? The law doesn't lay out clear consequences of any meaning. And then we continued this week. We didn't have the governor on, although we continued to seek him. We had the lieutenant governor on this week, Winsome Sears. We asked her about this question. It was a perfectly pleasant conversation, but we didn't leave with meaningful consequences. She indicated that I'm not an attorney on this, but parents need to be respected and the school system needs to follow the law. That's fine, but what's the teeth to make that happen? And you just heard from the Attorney General, Jason Miyares. And the answer to my question on that subject is that it will take a parent lawsuit. Parents need to sue. You need to bring lawsuits against these schools for hurting you and your family and your communities. And when you do, the Attorney General just said he stands ready to join you in that lawsuit. That's the beginning. Am I right about this, Corey? That's the first time we've heard anything about consequences here for these school districts for leading an insurrection against the parents. So we're getting some answers here, and we'll keep pursuing them. We've got Joe in Woodbridge, line 4. Joe, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Yeah, the Attorney General hit the nail on the head. Money talks, and when you start suing the school districts for a violation of civil rights, I mean, there's two different lawsuits that I see. The first lawsuit would be for parents to file class action lawsuits against the school systems for violating the civil rights of the parents to make life-changing decisions about their children. And the second civil rights lawsuit would be, I propose that the civil rights of every young girl in the school system are being violated because the school system is allowing sexual assault and
yes.
sexual harassment by allowing the exposure of male genital parts in the locker rooms.
Yes.
Let's face it. If someone exposes themselves in a public park or in a playground, they're getting arrested for indecent exposure.
This is the point. You're totally right, Joe. In fact, 5 years ago, if you had asked any of us about this, hey, they're letting men in the women's room, they would have sent the cops in. That's how we would have dealt with this. And instead, they're justifying this insanity. Yeah, I agree, Joe. Thank you. Money talks. Sorry for stepping on you, brother. I didn't mean to, but I appreciate the phone call. Let's take Kenny calling in from Hamilton, line 5. Kenny, you're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm good, Kenny. What's on your mind?
Hey, I was just wondering to make sure I got this clear. So the general attorney was talking about the consequences of the school systems not following the law.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's up to the parents to enforce the law. So I have to spend my tax dollars to file a lawsuit to get the school board on board. Is that right?
That's what he described. Yes, not your tax dollars, just your regular old money, I guess. So you need to a lawsuit. A lawsuit needs to be filed by parents in order to get this fired up. Now, it could be that some of the outside interest groups could help fund this. There are parents groups that do this. But yes, it sounds like a citizen suit needs to start.
For $400 an hour for eternity to go through the process. Sounds like they need to put a little bit more skin in the game and not have the parents enforce the law, but have the governor and everybody else help enforce the law.
Yeah.
So they have to.
This is a good point, Kenny. Look, if they have those powers, they should absolutely be using them. Whatever they have, every single power. As I said, the only consequences we've heard about this week so far on this subject is if a lawsuit gets initiated, that the attorney general can join it and begin to fix this up. That's what we're learning. If we learn more, we'll share it with you, I promise. Coming up, I want to talk about the left's extremist position on abortion and how they're trying to cover it up today. Good afternoon to you. 5:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us today, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL.
We cannot succeed as a country if you are working hard and you can't afford groceries, a car, or a new home, while Hunter Biden can make hundreds of thousands of dollars on lousy paintings. That is wrong.
Yeah, Ron DeSantis last night, during one of the few moments he had to speak, using his time well. That was a good line, going after Hunter Biden. I appreciated that, pointing out the fundamental corruption of the Biden crime family. There was also some interesting moments last night between Vivek Ramaswamy and the rotund governor of New Jersey, Christie. The two men cannot be more different, can they? Certainly in physique, they're very different. Here's how Vivek introduced himself last night.
So first, let me just address a question that is on everybody's mind at home tonight. Who the heck is this skinny guy with a funny last name, and what the heck is he doing in the middle of this debate stage? I'll tell you, I'm not a politician, Brett. You're right about that. I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so Vivek, that line, it didn't ring any bells in my head last night. Sometimes I detect these things. I didn't when he said that. Christie kind of smartly detected that was a rehash of an old Obama line, a skinny guy with a funny last name. Obama had used that at one point, and Christie remembered it. Here's a little bit of a back and forth between Christie and Vivek.
Are you bought and paid for?
Down by
Hold on.
in the last century.
Listen.
I've had it. No,
Wait, hold on.
I've had enough. I've had enough already tonight of a guy who sounds like ChatGPT standing up here.
Yeah, he's artificial intelligence, this guy. He's like a robot.
The last person in one of these debates, Brett, who stood in the middle of the stage and said, "What's a skinny guy with an odd last name doing up here?" was Barack Obama.
That's a great catch, by the way. Just all due credit to Christie. I did not catch it. He did.
And I'm afraid we're dealing with the same type of amateur standing on stage tonight.
Come on, my friend, give me a hug. Give me a hug just like you did to Obama.
The same type of amateur.
And you'll help elect me just like you did to Obama, too. Give me that
the
bear
same
hug,
type of amateur.
Hold on.
Did you hear all that? Could you hear what Vivek said in response? And he goes, okay, well, then if I'm like Obama, come and give me a hug, just like you did to Obama. Remember? You hugged Obama and you helped him get reelected. Maybe you'll get me elected if you hug me. Great retort. Top scores, both of these guys, last night in that exchange. Vivek, at one point, they're talking about Donald Trump because a question comes up about Donald Trump's fitness for office. And Vivek has this to say about the former president.
President Trump, I believe, was the best president of the 21st century. It's a fact. And Chris Christie, honest to God, your claim that Donald Trump is motivated by vengeance and grievance would be a lot more credible if your entire campaign were not based on vengeance and grievance against one man.
This is good. This is a good line, and it's totally, and because it's true. What the Chris Christie campaign is predicated on vengeance and grievance against Trump. It's not like Chris Christie's out there trying to get Trump supporters to back him. And how do you win a Republican nomination if you don't seek the support of Trump supporters? You have to. It's the only way to do this thing. Chris Christie not interested because he's a kamikaze for Donald Trump. That's the point to all of this. There was also some conversation about abortion last night. Ron DeSantis giving an answer on abortion. A number of people on stage. And the debate was really like, at what level do we establish these restrictions to save the lives of children? They don't use that language. I do. At the federal level, the state level, how do we do this?
You got to do what you think is right. I believe in a culture of life. I was proud to sign the heartbeat bill. I remember one of the most impactful moments of my life was when I heard the heartbeat of my oldest daughter in my wife's womb, and then saw the sonograms of all three of my kids. What the Democrats are trying to do on this issue is wrong, to allow abortion all the way up to the moment of birth.
Okay, so he's right about that. And DeSantis is not the only one on stage who pointed out that the left is very extreme on baby death. They are very extreme on this subject. Now, there was some panic last night on the American left because they saw that people were seeing this and they wanted people to not think about it so much. Jen Psaki, the original, circle back to Jen Psaki, the original press secretary for the abysmal Biden White House, she tweeted out last night, "No one supports abortion up until birth," she said. No one supports that. Really? Because I just found audio of Jen Psaki supporting that. This is the Women's Health Protection Act, which she was shoving along when she was in the White House.
He's announced his strong support for passage of the Women's Health Protection Act, urges Congress to pass it.
Computer, what does the Women's Health Protection Act do? Oh, look at that. It allows for abortion all the way up until the moment of birth. Now, the left, if they're going to issue a fact check on this, and there are fact check websites who've taken a look at this, hey, you keep saying that it allows abortion all the way up until the moment of birth. That is mostly false. What do you mean by mostly false? Can you be more specific? How can it be mostly false? What is the circumstance in which it is not entirely false? Well, if a patient indicates that their health is on the line in the third trimester, okay, what does that mean? That the mother is about to die? Or that the baby is about to die? What are the circumstances? Well, if the mother is emotionally distraught about the child, she can abort it. Okay, so then what you're describing is that there are no impediments whatsoever to killing the baby all the way through the pregnancy. That's what you're describing. So Jen Psaki supports aborting children at any stage of pregnancy up until and perhaps beyond the moment of birth. And I say perhaps beyond because there are Democrats who have straight up said maybe it's worth it for a child to die after they're born. Ralph Northam, here's the cut.
There are, when we talk about third trimester abortions, these are done with the consent of obviously the mother, with the consent of the physicians, more than one physician, by the way. And it's done in cases where there may be severe deformities, there may be a fetus that's non-viable. So in this particular example, if a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother.
A baby has a right to life contingent on whether the doctor and the mother allow the child to live outside of the womb. Laying on the table, the operating table. We'll make a decision. What? This is the kind of vile crap that came out of his mouth and certainly has been coming out of the mouths of Democrats. Democrats don't support restrictions of any kind. They won't even bother laying them out. They just pretend like the issue's over. Jen Psaki saying on Twitter that no one supports abortion up until birth. That's strange because you just did. I just played audio of you doing that. Remember, at the time that Ralph Northam said this, it was also when a Democrat Virginia delegate by the name of Kathy Tran was putting forward a bill that would allow an abortion to take place as the baby was emerging. Kathy Tran, remember this?
Delegate Tran.
Yes, sir.
How late in a pregnancy would your bill apply if a physician was simply willing to certify that the continuation of the pregnancy would impair the mental health of the woman? How late are we talking about?
Well, so the way the suggestion that we've made in the bill is to say it's in the third trimester and at the, with the certification of the physician. So
how late in the third trimester would you be able to do that?
It's very unfortunate that our physicians, witnesses, were not able to attend.
Oh, sorry about that. Let me see if I can't get that audio fully filled out for you. But she says up until the moment of birth. Corey's looking like it's his mistake. It's not your mistake. Don't you worry, Corey. I was playing this off of a different source. Corey gathers, as you might imagine. The behind-the-scenes action here is Corey puts together most of my audio. Occasionally, I freestyle. I just did, and we just lived with the consequences of it. But Kathy Tran indicated in that she supports abortion even when the mother is dilating. That is what her legislation sought to advance. That's what Ralph Northam was looking to defend. We'll make the baby comfortable, and then we'll make a decision. The DeSantis team overnight put out a supercut, which is a collection of audio, of Democrats who, of course, do support abortion all the way up until birth.
Do you support any restrictions on abortion?
I don't. I've always believed...
Even in the third trimester?
Do you think there should be any limitation on abortions?
No, I do not.
Where it's obvious that a woman is about to give birth. She has physical signs that she is about to give a birth. Would that still be a point at which she could request an abortion if she was so certified?
My bill would allow that, yes.
That's the Kathy Tran audio we were looking for. Thank you. That's Corey's doing.
Do you believe that a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy up until the moment of birth?
Look, I think that happens very, very rarely. But at the end of the day, I believe that the decision over abortion belongs to a woman and a physician.
My question was about any limits to abortion at any point. Late term, anything?
You got to leave it up to the woman.
Till now, my understanding is there wasn't a limit on when in a pregnancy a woman could receive an abortion. Have you set any limit on it?
There are no limits.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about where the American people are on this subject. Not with the Democrats at all. Well over 70% of the public wants to restrict abortion to keep fully formed babies from being executed. They're opposed to this. This cuts across partisan lines. Nobody is for this except some very crazy people and certainly a lot of leaders in the Democrat Party. The policies we have in the United States on this subject are insane. It is a human sacrifice cult. You've got only countries like China and North Korea are as permissive with this genocide, this atrocity, as the United States is. Wow, we're in really good company, huh? North Korea and China. Led, of course, here in the United States by these Democrats who are doing this. Now, another piece to all of this, because there's so much lying going on this subject. There's a woman called Katie Couric. Have you ever heard of her? Katie Couric? Yeah, it's Katie Couric. The journalist, Katie Couric, she was tweeting the GOP debate last night, and she wrote this about this subject. She goes, it's worth noting that fewer than 1% of abortions occur in the third trimester. All right. So she said fewer than 1%. In other words, this basically never happens. Let's do some math now. Let's explore the number 1%. In any given year in the United States, and in many years, we've had 1 million abortions documented per year. 1 million abortions. What is 1% of 1 million? Well, that would be 10,000. 10,000 abortions are in the third trimester. That's a lot of babies, isn't it? A lot of babies being killed late. And what are the reasons for that? Well, Katie Couric and her friends were tweeting yesterday that this is only done in very rare circumstances. It's done to save the life of the mother, or if the baby's in peril and won't survive the birth. And they basically say that there's all these, it is the worst situation. It only happens very rarely. It only happens for these very medically necessary interventions, and that's it. Well, even that's a lie. That's a lie. The Guttmacher Institute, which is the data gathering arm of Planned Parenthood. They're responsible. They push abortion all the time, but they gather data on abortion. And in their data gathering, they've established the following. Quote, most late-term abortions are elective, done on healthy women with healthy fetuses, and for the same reasons given by women experiencing first trimester abortions. In other words, these are just healthy babies being aborted late in the pregnancy, being killed off. And the left keeps lying about it. They lie about every single... Why do you have to lie about it? If it is such a public good, if it's the kind of thing everybody agrees on, why lie about the circumstances? And you know the answer to that. The reason is they know that we are all disgusted by this. We're totally disgusted by it. With the advancement in medicine, with the advancement in medical imagery, with the ability for people to see more intimately what's actually going on in human development, people are more and more disgusted by it with each passing year. And so the left lies with more and more fervor about what's actually taking place and who's actually doing it and with what frequency and for what reasons. They just lie. Can you imagine being that wedded to the cult of human sacrifice that you have to... Isn't that insane? That's insane. And so those Republican candidates were right to say this last night, but they don't. Nobody ever says it with enough volume, right? Instead, Republicans, especially like the Republican consultant class, they get sucked into this debate, and then they start like saying, well, we shouldn't talk about it, avoid talking about it, be ambivalent, equivocate, dodge, get out of the conversation. It's a loser for you. No, you have to talk about the extremists. The real extremists in this conversation are the lefties who are trying to increase the number of abortions in this country. And it's a real disgrace all the way up until the moment of birth. And this is what they support. They don't support restrictions. You hear them talking about what restrictions? When was the last time you heard a Democrat come out and lay out their restrictions? Find it for me, would you? It's 5:50 now. So we've got Sam in Alexandria, line 3. Sam, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show. Hello, Sam.
Hey, thanks so much, Vince. I really appreciate it. One thing I found interesting on the whole abortion issue was that, I am so sick and tired of hearing, yes, we will consult with the woman, the mother, and the doctor. Well, what about me? I had a part in this too.
Yes.
And if I'm involved, and let's say my girlfriend, my wife, whomever is having a significant challenge or mental issue or a breakdown or something like that, what about me?
So,
and I'm
Sam,
willing to say,
Sam,
you know what?
This is such a good point. I'm sorry. I just want to make this point. I know in my life, like if my wife is dealing with something medically, I'm the single most important voice that she consults on that subject. So the doctor, of course, has the expertise, but the actual, like, hey, what do we do? How do we navigate this? That's a conversation between her and I. And it goes the same way for me, too. So you're right. That's fundamental to this. If this is a health decision, of course you should include your husband or the father.
You would hope so, but you never hear it. And as a single father who raised a daughter and into teenage years, I understand, about other people, politicians making decisions for me and my family.
Yes.
I get that. But at the end of the day, it is our decision. And, we hope that we make that decision based upon God's direction.
Yeah.
And I thought Nikki Haley's response was very interesting in this, so I would re-listen.
Yeah, big time. It was also interesting. Thank you, Sam, for all the excellent and wise words. More wise words are ahead, by the way, because the great one, Mark Levin, is up next on yet another important day in American history. The arrest of Donald Trump in Georgia, set to take place about an hour and a half from now. Stay with WMAL for the latest.